Hi everyone, this is episode 2, the official wine episode of Mason's Wine and Food. We're going to deep dive into 2 wines today. We're going to look at A.R. Lenoble's, their house, and then we're going to take a look at Gâteau Boyau, and these are 2 very different styles of wine. The A.R. Lenoble, this is the Zero Dosage Mag 14. This was originally founded by a gentleman named Armand Raphael Gasset. By the way, I'm going to butcher some names and you're just going to have to live with it. This was, he originally lived in Alsace. He grew up in Alsace when it was part of Germany. And in 1915, he made his way over to Champagne to produce grapes. And he ran into the big problem of World War I. Now, I spoke about this a little bit earlier, but World War I in that area, there was nothing going on. So, he was able to get the grapes planted, and a few years later, he started putting out wine. Just a couple years after World War I ended in 1920, he started it up, and there he planted Chardonnay, Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir, the 3 main grapes used in Champagne. There are others, and that's a different story for another time. So he created Lenoble, and today it's actually still in the family, 100% independent. This is owned by a sister and brother duo, Anne and Antoine Masson. I told you I'd butcher it. But they are fully sustainable. They have had actually 20 years of sustainable growing and winemaking at Lenoble, and that's actually awarded them the Haute Valeur Environnementale, which is you only have to have 3 vintages in which you use these practices. They've done it for over 20. So let's get into the wine. Now this is Zero Dosage. What that means is there is no sugar added to the winemaking process. It's natural. You have other things like brut and extra bruts, you have extra dry. Wait a minute, always a whisper, never a pop. All right, this wine is 45% Pinot Meunier, 30% Pinot Noir, and 25% Chardonnay. The average price in the market via Wine Searcher, I took their average of domestic wines, or wine sold domestically, is $45. Now, if you compare that to something like Veuve Clicquot or Moet and Chandon, depending where you're going, it could be as high as 55 or 60. In a supermarket, it's 65. If you go to a decent wine store, it could be somewhere in the 40s. So that is the difference. So let's take a look at this one real quick. So remember, no sugars added, and this is a blend of the 3 traditional grapes planted in Champagne now. It's a little light on the nose. It has nice toast yeasty kind of nose to it. Maybe a little hint of apricots. It's Champagne. I'm not going to spit it out. So this comes through in a big way in terms of apple. This is more of on the tart side, like a Granny Smith. This is actually refreshing. It's enjoyable. It's got nice acidity to it. Zero Dosage makes for a really good food wine. So you want to pair this with I wouldn't say mussels, but you do want to do it with like I would lean more into salmon. Something with a little bit of fat in there that the acid can cut through. It's a really nice combination, and you're really getting a lot for the price here. So, just to let you know, they're being a house winery with a house style. They produce about 320,000 bottles, or about around 25,000 cases annually. That's actually one of the smaller house styles in Champagne. Okay, let's get into the next one. Our next one is NonVintage. And something I didn't explain in the first one, when you open champagne, not only, it should be open with a whisper, not a pop. The wire cage here should be twisted back 6 times. 5, 6, and it'll come undone right there. And you grab it, you keep the cage on, so you have something to grab onto, and just twist gently until it finally lets out a whisper. All right. Courtois. This is the non-vintage Reflet de Rivière, or River Reflections. As I said, this is a grower champagne, or Récoltant Manipulant. This was started by Jules Courtois and Louis Bouillon in 1911. So hence the name. They got married, and now their great-grandson, Bastien Paplu, makes the wine and manages the business. Now, being a grower, they can kind of do whatever they want within the confines of Champagne itself. With this in mind, their house style is to have no malolactic fermentation, so the creaminess that you might get on some house wines, you're not going to find on this. They believe in acid. I was actually with the winemaker and owner, Bastien, a few months ago. He prefers his champagnes to be consumed, maybe not ice cold, but a little bit colder than room temperature. They use a lot of Pinot Meunier in their product, and they think it shines the best when it's a little bit warmer out. The wine it is, not the atmosphere. This is 60% Pinot Meunier, 20% Pinot Noir, and 20% Chardonnay. And the way they age their wines, they do it kind of like a Spanish sherry. It's a Solera system of types, in that they'll have different vintages reaching back. In their current history, they have some reaching back to 1950s, I believe. This one, the earliest wine in here, is from 1980, reaching through to 2011. So with this in mind, they have a 50,000 bottle production, so 1/6 the size of the house in the Lenoble. So that's about 4,000 cases of wine, and the average price on Wine Searcher is around $48. So once again, keep that in context when we talk about Veuve Clicquot and the other guys, and I'm going to hammer on them a lot, but it's to make a point. All right, this one gets right up in your nose. A lot more to it. It's like fresh wheat. Of course, you get kind of a biscuited nose to it, but it's a little bit more intense. Maybe not a candied apple, but definitely like apple and maybe a little hint of apricot to it. It's fresh, it has body to it. This is a wine that you don't necessarily want for food, which I really love. This is more of a wine that you want for either cocktails or hors d'oeuvres, something like that. You don't want to put it with too much food, or else it's just going to get swallowed up in that situation. That having said, I think it's a delicious taste. It's got a nice lasting finish. A finish means a lot in a wine, and we're going to get into that here in just a moment when we go over the wine scores. I mentioned that Lenoble has been lauded for their haute valeur environmentale. Courtois does the same thing. Not lauded by them. I cannot remember off the top of my head. It's viticulture durable. It is a very exacting qualification. This is a little bit more broad in their qualification, a little bit towards biodynamics. But they're both excellent wines in their own ways. And to put it into context, I mentioned it earlier, I'll mention it now. This is something that's been tinkered with for decades in Lenoble, and Goutte Bayeux will be something that's more immediate. They're going to make it according to the vintage, what vintage stands out the most, what's going to stand out going forward. So you have these two. I would recommend them both. And in just a moment, we will go to a score. It'll be the first score. And to let you know this now, it's based on 10 criteria. So now we go to scoring. So this is a new style that I'm introducing. This isn't like a 100-point wine score in that it is 100 points, but you're going to see how it builds in terms of points. So other people, other periodicals that score, they give you a score and they really don't have a lot of reasoning behind it. It's kind of, they just give you points, kind of like signing your name on an SAT. So this one is you're going to see my approach to this, and I don't know what a good score is going to be yet. I don't know what a bad score is yet. It is what it is. I'm assuming there are, the really good ones are going to hover around 50. So with that in mind, let's get to category 1, and that is aromatics. Aromatics are the calling card of wine. That is what your first impression of wine other than looking at it. For Lenoble, I think the nose on it is great. It doesn't really stand out like anything else. So for that, I give it a score of a 4. On taste, the taste is exceptional. It's a brute 0, so it should have acid to it, and it's very, very nice. I give that a score of a 6. The body for the variety. This one can vary somewhat. We'll see how it develops over time. But this is a champagne, and champagnes can be light and full-bodied. So this one is a little bit on the lighter side. It's very nice. I give it a 5. Food compatibility. Earlier during the tasting, I noted the amount of acidity to it, the lightness of it makes it great with food. So with that one, I'm going to give it a 7. The next category is finish. Finish is amazing. Finishes can be amazing. Think about amazing Cabernet Sauvignon that'll have a finish, or a Shiraz that'll have a finish of a minute or 2 minutes. So this isn't quite that intense in terms of that. I give it a 5. So these 5 categories together equal a score of 27. So the next set of 5 that I have, we're going to start with value. Value on this wine is amazing. It is at least as inexpensive as some of the big boys you see on the shelf. For that, I give it a score of a 6. Ageability, this is a non-vintage champagne. They're not meant to age that long, not like a vintage champagne. Excuse me. For that, I give it a score of a 3. Desirability. Some people know about Lenoble, some don't. It's not really something that's sought after in a champagne group like a Krug or Dom Pérignon or Cristal. So desirability, I give it a score of 3. Sustainability. As I said earlier, they had been making sustainable wines for the past 20 years. It's a remarkable feat for modern wine. And for that, I actually give it a perfect score. It's a 10. Partying and catering is the last of the categories. How these wines would show up at a wedding or at a graduation or a big dinner, something like that. Because of the price, it kind of knocks it out of this category, so I just give it a score of a 3. So the second set of 5 is add them up, and you get a score of 25, which gives you the overall score of 52. Now, for the Goutte Bayeux, the aromatics on there are really intense, especially when it warms up. That Pinot Meunier really steps into the spotlight. It just gets a score of a 5. The taste on it is very nice. It's, once again, not as intense as you may want it to be, but I think it's very good, and I give it a 5. Body for the variety, this, once again, a blend of different grapes, and the body, it's medium bodied. It's very nice. There you go. It's a 5. Food compatibility, this is not, as I said earlier, not exactly a food wine. This is more meant for drinking by itself or, you know, light hors d'oeuvres. So I give it a score of a 4. And the finish lingers a little bit, and it's a nice little lingering taste. And I scored that a 6. Add those 5 categories together, gets a score of 25. Now for the second 5, value. Value, it really is just like the Lenoble. Maybe I'll change the score a little bit later, but right now I think it really gets a score of a 7. Ageability. Once again, this is a non-vintage champagne, so it's not really made to age that long, and it gets a score of a 4. So desirability. Those who do know about it, really, they enjoy it, but people might pass it over because it's not in line like the big houses are. So it gets a score of a 3. Sustainability. This is also really high. They are honored in France as being incredibly sustainable. They're new to the game in terms of doing that than I know of. So I'm going to give it a score of an 8. Last category is party or catering. Would you want to spend that much to do for a catering event or a wedding or something like that? Probably not. So it gets a score of a 2. Those 5 together add up to 24 points. Add them all up together, the overall score is 49 points. These ones are both exceptional. So I'm assuming this is going to reflect as to be a good score, but this is what we're going to go with, and we're going to see how it compares down the road.